Hans Wormhat. This is a video about the roles they play, the roles that trannies play, and this is one of those obvious truth in plain sight things. All the world's a stage. Yeah, of course. All of the politicians, anyone who's famous, they're just playing a role. CEOs of giant companies, they're not really doing anything. It's just some figurehead, some tranny leading the thing. But this goes down to just your everyday life too. People in your everyday life, trannies in your everyday life. They tell us the truth about this, how, in Shakespearean times, and Shakespeare's just a fake, not even a real person. Who knows when that stuff was written? Could have been written just like 100 years ago or something. They tell us that the girl parts were really played by boys. What they don't tell us is that the boys' parts were played by girls. But the stage is everywhere. The stage of life. Theater of war. There will be just little clues like this everywhere, that you're surrounded by a big play that's happening. And who are the actors? A bunch of trannies. And regular humans are just thrown in the mix. They tell us the truth about this in things like The Truman Show. Truman is just one. True man represents a true man. And the entire world is just a bunch of actors acting out their little roles around them. And so it doesn't work exactly like the Truman Show, with people having a bunch of headsets in and like, okay, do this now. And I don't know, maybe the director in the Truman Show is kind of just a representation of the beast system. But all the little actors, they do get their little parts, and they have to follow their script. And it can be something as simple as the idea of red versus blue, which is something that I could expand on. I have one video on it, and I could probably do more videos. But it's just a really simple idea. There's the red lodgers and there's the blue lodgers, and just think of it as the red lodgers are the conservative Republican generally, and the blue lodgers are the progressive Democrats. But Team Red, Team Blue, they both play for Team Purple. It's a divide and conquer tactic. And really, anybody who's fully awake, they know that all that is a bunch of BS, and you should be on Team Jesus Christ. That's it. There's no other team. And another thing that they can play, so right, you have red versus blue. That's one thing. But that's usually like a label that they attach to themselves. Another label, or like another tactic they have, is good tranny, bad tranny. And this doesn't have to even be... most of these trannies, they're into this, the yin-yang idea, duality, good and evil. They think that they have their good half, and they think that they have their bad half. So a lot of trannies will play good or bad, just depending on the situation. I can think of just my MTFX. If you're in a relationship with a creature, they'll do a good tranny, bad tranny on you all the time. They'll be a bad tranny until they can get their way, and they can push your buttons, and they can just get you right at your boiling point, and then boom, they flip on their good tranny switch, and you're like, oh, maybe everything's getting better. But once they've given you enough good tranny, they're back on their bad tranny. And I can just give more examples from my life. When my life was kind of falling apart, when I was an alcoholic and depressed and all that, it's like a lot of the trannies in my family were playing a good tranny part. But it's not even like they cared about me. I think that they just liked seeing my life being a mess and falling apart. They're crabs in a bucket. They like seeing real humans suffer. And once I got my life together, they really stopped caring about me. I can just say, for example, like my mom, and in particular one tranny cousin of mine, when my life was falling apart and I was a huge alcoholic, I was actually kind of friends with them. And they would try talking to me and texting me and calling me. And now that I woke up, and now that I have my life together, and now that I'm with Jesus, they basically want nothing to do with me. And it's even worse than that. I'll tell a story. I guess this may as well be the time to tell a story about these last holidays. What I always call the holidays. I hate the holidays. And so I went down to visit my family. Yeah, I still visit my family sometimes. I still talk to my family. And here's just a story so that you can see this is how it is if you live in a tranny family, which most people do. Most people live in a tranny family, whether or not they're willing to admit it. So I was sitting upstairs in my Rex Bros room, and my my Rexbro was in the house too, so I wasn't like alone up there. And I guess my mom had driven over and was like at the door knocking or maybe even ringing the doorbell. I was on the computer. I was playing a computer game, so I didn't hear. But I didn't have a call. I didn't have a text message or anything. But I just hear yelling out the window, and it was my mom yelling at me. Hey, what's up with you? Why won't you let me in? What, you don't want me to be here? Just tell me. You want me to leave? And I was like, well, whatever. Just do whatever. You want to leave? Go for it. I don't care. Because it was just like 0 to 100. I honestly didn't hear my mom drive up. I didn't hear my mom ring the doorbell or knock or anything. And she just starts out the conversation yelling at me about how horrible I am. And I just said, hey, my brother's right here too, and he didn't hear you ring the doorbell. He didn't hear you knock. He didn't let you in. Why are you yelling at me? Why are you putting this all on me? You want to leave? Go, leave. And then my Rexbro came in, and I told him about what happened, and he tried to turn it all onto me and how I'm being a big meanie. And I told him, you're here. You could have let her in. Why is this all on me? You could have heard her. You could have let her in. So what's the deal? Who even cares? She was here. Hey, she got my attention. Do you want me to come let you in? No, they just want to start a fight with you. And then it's weird. So then my Rexbro like leaves and goes over to my mom's house, and they have their little tranny powwow together, and just they put a whole negative mood on the whole thing. I don't want to be traveling all over for the holidays. I just want to relax. And they want to come in and just start a huge fight about everything. What? If you want to be let in the house, once you have my attention, tell me to let you in the house. You don't have to make a huge fight over it. But this is just how tears act. Tearing up the place with their tear behavior. So yeah, my mom and Rexbro, they come back and they come inside the house and they have presents because it's Christmas or whatever. And just the first thing out of my Rexbro's mouth is, oh, here are presents for your boy Jesus. That's what they say to me. So they work together and they're little, and see, none of that makes sense. Why is everybody mad at me? Anybody could have let my mom in the house. Why is it all on me? Oh, because I'm a real man. That's always the answer. Oh, because I'm not a tear. Because I'm not satanic. So it's just all one big game for them to make our lives miserable. Okay, so enough with that story time. The roles they play, so different roles. I'll talk about, this is a good time to talk about the role that my mom plays. And I'll throw a different role in there too right before, because my mom is definitely not a breeder. There's no pictures of my mom pregnant, and my mom never talks about being pregnant with me. And it's always my dad, my Rex dad, who talks about my birth story, and it's because my Rex dad is the one who carried me. Yeah, the FTM, they carry children all the time. So there's breeders out there. A lot of breeders are FTM. Think Rob Kardashian. That's like Rob Kardashian's job, to pump out babies for the system and to just stay behind, just stay out of the light while they're pumping out these babies. And so there's breeders, and also, so here's what I think my mom is a handler. And I think that this probably is a role played by non-trannies a lot of times. What makes me think of my mom as being a handler is, well, I always thought of my mom as being like, oh, the cool mom, who all the kids in the neighborhood all thought, oh, your mom is so cool. And I can give one story in particular. I've talked about this FTM tranny before. They got scripted into their life story, oh, you're going to have a teen pregnancy. And so this is an FTM, and this FTM had an MTF child. So that can't happen. A free Martin can't father an MTF. So what it means is this FTM was probably carrying the child, or there was a surrogate involved, and they were just given a child. I've talked about this in other videos. Trannies have teen pregnancies all the time. That doesn't make any sense. It's scripted into their story. You're going to have a teen pregnancy. So the way that the story goes, and why it makes me think that my mom is a handler, is I've just found out through this FTM tranny told me once, oh, your mom is so awesome. Your mom gave me my first beer. That's what they told me. And it was around the time that this person was going through that I don't know, life change, about to have their little tranlet pushed on them. And that, to me, it just seems like a handler story. Like if a local tranny, if one of the trannies on the street where I grew up was having a problem and they wanted to go talk to somebody who wasn't their family, their tranly, they could go talk to my mom, who is kind of like a neutral party in terms of the cabal, right? And so a lot of trannies, they did use my mom as kind of a counselor figure. They would go talk to my mom about their problems, and yeah, she might give them an underage beer and be an ear to listen to them. And a lot of them, honestly, thinking back to my childhood, and I always felt this way. Whatever, my mom was my mom. It's hard to really compare because you only have the family that you grew up in. It's one of those things where you can't know what it's like to live in another family, really. You just have what you have. But I could always tell that everybody envied my mom because they thought that she was like cool or whatever. But to me, my mom didn't take that role. My mom never gave me a beer and talked about my problems with me. Why was my mom taking on this role with all sorts of tranlets? But my mom never took on that role with me whatsoever. Never asked me about what my problems were, never sat me down and had those types of discussions with me. Never ever. And so that's what makes me think that my mom is a handler, has all this one-on-one experience with other people's tranlets, and was often thought as like the cool one, and oh wow, I wish I had a mom like you. And I'm just sitting there like, what are you talking about? There's literally nothing special about my mom whatsoever. And to me, just kind of a lot of bad stuff. It's like I was just a responsibility for her, and that really is what it is. Because I don't think she had anything to do with me being born, other than it's one of her MTF sisters who was a sperm donor. And so just one more story about my mom being a handler. My mom has always been closest with, I have an MTF cousin, and my mom is so close with that MTF cousin. They're like best friend status. But with us kids, no. Kids, hate that word. With who are supposed to be her own children, the relationship is nothing like that. What kind of a person has a way closer relationship with a niece than with their own children? Well, probably a handler that's probably had a big part in the raising of that tranlet. I guess just one more story that just came to my mind, so it's worth talking about. Around puberty age, my strat sister went on some trip to Costa Rica. There's something about Costa Rica. I hear a lot of stories about trannies going to Costa Rica. And so this is probably about the time that they took my strat sis and told them all the things. You're not going to have a normal period. You're going to have to take these birth control pills and stuff. I mean, they must already know something, because my sister, strat sis, was getting strep throat, getting that Adam's apple shaved down, getting all sorts of stuff. But it does seem like they have different illumination periods, and they often go away on a trip. And I always thought that was really weird. Why is my mom and my sister going away on a trip and just leaving us here? And it was all odd at the time. A lot of families, they take family trips together. They don't just go do things, little secret, separate trips. I never got a little trip like that with either of my parents. And so just little things like that. My handler mom was probably walking my sister through some of the illumination stuff. Okay, changing gears a little bit. Once you're waking up, once you're seeking the truth, you're going to run into a bunch of shills. That's paid opposition. We don't know how they get paid or if they get paid. I mean, they probably do. They might be part of their contract. So here I'm just going to talk about shills for a second and how it's clear that they play a role. So one aspect of shills, you'll notice that they're stuck to one platform or maybe two platforms. They'll be like a YouTube shill, and they'll have like 50 different accounts on YouTube, and they make comments to themselves, and they go try to stir up fights. But if you try to move them to a different platform, I spend a lot of time on Vote. Well, not a lot of time anymore because it's really a lost cause. But anyways, just to give you an example, A YouTube shill won't go off to another platform and talk to you there. It's like part of their contract is through YouTube. You're a YouTube shill. You got to do your YouTube stuff. And maybe that just has something to do with how they're compartmentalized. It kind of made me think of these big tranny companies. You know, if you work for a defense company or if you work for a company that makes software, nobody knows how the whole software works. And this is kind of how the hive, it's a hive, tranny hive. No one bee, besides I guess maybe the queen bee or whatever, but even that is kind of just a breeder. No one bee knows how the whole system works. In these huge companies, no one person knows how the whole company works. They have their own little section. So that's kind of how these shills act sometimes. They just have their one little platform that they work on, but that's it. They can't venture out into other things. They won't have a whole persona. They'll just have like their YouTube persona, or maybe they'll just have their YouTube. I've just had some shills interact with me. They'll interact with me through YouTube, and then they'll just send me a bunch of emails, just flood me with emails. And it's like that's their day job, to just sit there sending me a million emails. And so this isn't just shills, this is just regular trannies too. It seems like they follow a script. They just don't seem organic. Just to give you an example, when you start calling out people for being trannies, especially FTM, when you call them trannies, they start talking about car transmissions. It's like, who told them all to do that? It's like they get trained somewhere to, make jokes about car transmissions. Because that happens to me so often, you have no idea. I call an FTM a tranny, and they're like, oh, well, what about this type of transmission, or this type of transmission, or they'll just say something like, well, what's that have to do with like a car transmission? Or it's the same old joke, the same tired old joke. It reminds me of Glory Days FTM, that they tell the same stories over and over, or stupid Rex dads that have the same joke every single time you see them. They're like a broken record. And other things that is scripted, when you call out a tranny, when they say, haha, you caught me. I've heard that so many times. Or here's another one that I've heard a lot. You call somebody out, you start calling out these tears for what they are, and they fling it all on you. Whoa, what's wrong with you? I can tell that your uncle raped you when you were little. You have no idea, and it's always the uncle. I've been told that so many times. Oh, what, did your uncle touch you when you were a little kid? They always throw that at you. Or sometimes they just say, so what? So what if I'm a transgender? Oh, trust me, it matters. And this just made me think of buzzwords. You got to dissect the language down. Buzz, hive, bees. There's a reason it's called buzzword, the tranny hive. And just a few more things. I'll just end this video, and won't take me much longer. When it comes to script, being scripted, the trannies, they always follow a certain script. And here's an example that somebody just gave me. It seems like every once in a while a tranny will go off the script, but then they have to come back and fix themselves. So somebody recently emailed me and talked about how their dad, who probably is a Rex dad, at one point they kind of caved, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, 9/11 is a inside job or whatever, or 9/11 was a hoax. But then months and months later, they just make this one-off comment. Oh, did you know that one time there was a bridge fire and it collapsed just like the Twin Towers? So it really was real. And that's just like it. It's like they just undid everything that they had agreed to in the past. That's such a tranny move. And to me, what that reminds me of, I remember my Rex bro, a long time ago, my Rex bro, when I was totally asleep, would talk about, he brought up Sandy Hook being a hoax. But nowadays, if I ask him about Sandy Hook, he just shrugs it off and doesn't talk about it. Why the flip? Why did you used to be able to talk about Sandy Hook being a hoax, but now you can't? Another weird thing about my Rex bro, they told me, like they used to tell me to watch the movie They Live. And I just wonder what was going through your mind when you were like, watch this movie, go watch this movie. I just don't know what was going through their head. And similarly with my Rex dad, and there's certain things that it's like he's allowed to talk about it. Michelle Obama, Michael Obama, he can talk about that one being a tranny. Even Donna Trump. My Rex dad will call Donald Trump Donna Trump because I kept pushing it. I'm like, Donna is a woman. And so like that. my Rex dad can admit to Michael Obama being a tranny. My Rex dad can admit to Donald Trump being a tranny, but that's like it. Can't admit to anything else as far as the trannies are concerned. And NASA, especially Flat Earth, has to shill for them so hard. No matter what I bring up about it, he just constantly brings up, oh, I'll buy you a ticket to outer space one day. It's ridiculous. And so it's like they're scripted. How come some things they can kind of cave on, but then others they have to just stand their ground? And it seems like the tranny hive, they get orders at a certain time that, okay, certain topics are okay now. But only for certain people, too. Like, think of the flat earth shills, the obvious tranny flat earth shills. Notice how even certain topics are taboo for them. And they all share the same map. None of them are questioning the map that comes out. It's like they all come out with the same playbook at the same time. And they have to just stop you there. It's flat. And here's the map. They're just handing you something else. Then their map is inside out. Totally wrong. But that's just another example. It's like, for some of the trannies, they're allowed to talk about certain things, but then that's it. And then notice they'll all push weird New World Order things like veganism and a bunch of BS. So just going back to my dad for 1 second, it seems like very, very recently, it seems like my dad has been allowed to do the Jew question and has just now started sending me emails about the Holo hoax. And yeah, that has become very mainstream recently. So it's like, it's okay now for some of the trannies to question the Holo hoax. And one more thing about the NASA stuff. Some people have always been able to question the NASA stuff, but it seems like select people. In my past, I remember one of my cousins was always, oh, NASA is fake. But this cousin was a really dumb cousin of mine, somebody who was very, not book smart and got into trouble a lot. So I wonder if certain types are allowed to dissent because they're playing the role of a punk, stupid. It's like it was part of the fact that this person was denying NASA just made me think that it was really stupid. It's kind of the same idea behind they get the dumbest celebrity trannies out there to push flat Earth. It's not like they get somebody like Stephen Hawking to say, oh, you know what, it's all a bunch of lies, flat Earth. No, they get Tila Tequila to talk about flat Earth. My last little comment about this, the roles they play. Ever noticed how when a tranny kind of tries a new thing, it's like putting on an outfit for them? So my example that I'm using here is the free spirit tranny. When somebody decides that they're going to be a free spirit, a nature-loving, that type of thing, it's like they put on a costume. They get into New Ageism. They try all these crazy fad diets. Maybe they'll do some colon cleansing stuff, CC33. They'll read all the lifestyle books. They'll follow certain YouTube trannies. They follow all these false prophets. They start brushing their teeth with sticks, right? It's like they go all or nothing. They start being into crystals. Like, why do they all follow the same thing? It's like they're following a script. Okay, that's it for this video. I'm really eager to see what you guys have to say in the comments. So please share any personal experiences you have, anything that this video made you think of. All right, God bless everybody.